Deutschland, Düsseldorf und Sipgate. Vielen Dank. Sie geben mir Freude. Ich wünsche, dass mein ganzes Gespräch auf Deutsch sein könnte, aber das ist alles. So I have a few goals tonight with you. Get back to the food at some point, like you do. I was talking with Stefan earlier from Envision, and he said, you know why they're here tonight, don't you, Rich? It's that kitchen back there. You guys make amazing food. I'd like to just give a round of applause for all that great food here. My job is to justify that wonderful meal. So one of my other goals tonight is, I know many of you got the book, which is delightful for me. I love seeing copies of the book being carried around and all that sort of thing. But one of my goals is to get you to read the book. Because to me, there's not much value in a book, whether it's sold or given away, if it isn't read. So I'm going to tease you just a little bit tonight and start with reading a little bit of the book to you. You see, I know why you're here. It's because you are hoping, somewhat beyond hope, to bring joy into your own workplace. Deep down, you know there is a better way to run a team, a business, a company, a department. You've always known it. These thoughts come to you just before falling asleep or just after waking. Then your day begins. And the idea of transformational change evaporates like a maddening dream you can't seem to reassemble after waking from it. Although you may be silently, or perhaps not so silently, tortured in your own current broken company culture, you haven't given up completely. Change is still possible. I was in the same place once, deeply unsatisfied with my work and my own ability to do anything about it. But things can be better. My company, Menlo Innovations, has captured joy and made it true and sustainable for everyone who works with us and for us. And in this book, I will give you a good look into the radical practices we employ at Menlo that make our work such a unique experience. And I'll also share my personal journey from youthful joy to deep disillusionment to endless optimism in a workplace of joy. So where does all this come from for me? I started out in this industry when I was just a little kid. 1971. There were computers back in 1971. I know that's hard to imagine. But I was only 13 at the time, and I touched a computer for the first time. And I typed in a 2-line program. I typed the word run, and the computer came back on a roll of paper, because that's the way they used to work. And it clacked out, "Hi, Rich," because that's what I told it to do. And I was hooked. I knew what I was going to do the rest of my days. My kids are astounded by that. My daughters have said, "Really, Dad, you knew at 13 years old what you were going to do the rest of your life?" And I'm 58 now. I'm still in the same industry. I think I've decided. But very quickly, after getting into the profession of software development, my heart began to sink. I was living in a land of chaos. And you probably know this land. You've probably been there with me. If you're anywhere in the tech field, I know why you come to these things tonight. You're all starving tech entrepreneurs. This is the only place you can get something other than ramen noodles, right? This is, yeah. But chaos for me was coming home at the end of a long day, often away from family. The dinner was cold in the microwave, and my wife would look at me and she'd say, "Oh, honey, did you get a lot done today?" And I realized, no, I got nothing done today. Because there were so many fires to put out, so many phone calls that weren't expected, so many problem reports coming in, missed deadlines, all that sort of thing. And the trouble with these kind of environments is they produce what I call negative events. I write about one of these in the book. A tired programmer at Knight Capital Group made a mistake when updating server software on their New York Stock Exchange trading platform. And in the next 45 minutes, that software traded $7 billion worth of securities it was not supposed to, costing Knight Capital Group $400 million in 45 minutes. Anybody with me that that would be considered a negative event where you work? There's an old saying that says, to err is human, but to really foul things up requires a computer. Right? And of course, once you have a negative event, there's always an organizational response. And in the software industry, it looks like a big 3-ring binder, a software development life cycle. It's a big, thick binder filled with documents that prescribe meetings and committees and sign-offs and approvals and stage gates and all this sort of thing, and you have to put a police force in charge of this in the project management office just to mind the documents, to make sure they're all being signed off and make sure all the documents are secure and recorded and logged. And of course, now you're going from chaos to full-blown bureaucracy. You're going from the land of never getting anything done to the land of never getting anything started. Right? Because you're waiting for some approval. And of course, there are still things that need to get done, so we form little shadow groups, right? We work around the system, right? We're little hallway conversations to get things done, and now we're working in the worst possible version of life. We're working in chaos and bureaucracy simultaneously. And then usually somebody says, hey, I think with that big 3-ring binder, we went a little far. Let's lighten up our process a little bit. Let's put together SDLC Lite, just a little stapled together document for small projects, quick committees, reviews, but then even those meetings aren't getting scheduled anymore. And so we get rid of all those things. We fire the PMO, we throw out the binders, and we say to everybody, we're agile now. And then we just fall back into chaos again. Back and forth my life went like this. I have people come up to me and they're like, Rich, you just described the last 10 years of my life where I work. And I'm here to show you that there's a different way. It neither has to be chaos nor bureaucracy. It can be something very, very straightforward, something we all understand as human beings. We've understood it since we were children. Structure. Simple, repeatable, measurable, visible structure based on human relationships that feed human energy rather than steal it away. And that's what I'm going to explore to you tonight. And I'm going to explore it in an unusual context. I'm going to talk about it in the context of joy. There's a lot of people who've asked me, Rich, why joy? Where did that come from for you? And I thought back to that 13-year-old, and I thought about it, and I thought, yep, that's where the joy came from, that idea of being able to create things almost as an artist would. Software is like that for me. That's my art form. But I realized that isn't really the root of my joy. That isn't where it came from. I actually had to go back a little further in my life. I went back to the 10-year-old version of me. My parents had wanted to put a shelving unit in their living room. They went to a store, they got this big box, sort of like IKEA, but of course IKEA wasn't in existence in 1967. They brought it home and they put it out in the garage. And I will tell you that I am an engineer at heart. I love to build things. I think that's what drives me, is building things. So they left for dinner and a movie, and I was home alone, and I went out in the garage, and I built that shelving unit. I was so proud of myself. There were probably like 50 pieces of wood and 200 little nuts, bolts, and screws, and I put it together. It was beautiful. I couldn't, and all of a sudden I thought, no, I built it in the garage. My mom wants it in the living room. So for the next hour, I inched that shelving unit out of the garage, down the sidewalk, up into the family room and the utility room, the kitchen. I pushed it right into place. My 10-year-old memory was, I did no damage. Then I put books and little knickknacks in the stereo system, and I had music playing. And when my mom and dad came in the front door and saw that, my mom was so delighted, she cried. And that was joy for me. That idea of serving others is, I believe, where this comes from for me. Because I can tell you the heart of the engineer is this. What we want to do is see the things that we create put out into the world. We want them to delight other people. We want people to stop and say, I love that software. But too often we're denied that. First of all, we work in these environments that have taken away that joy and turned it into fear. This was my life for a long time. I was unhappy with where I was. I was so unhappy, I was thinking of leaving the industry entirely. I wanted to go into the wilderness. I wanted to start a canoe camp up in Minnesota. My wife laughs like you're laughing right now when I say that. Now, I can assure you there'll be at least one guy in the room later who will pull me aside and say, hey, Rich, can we talk about that canoe camp idea? The women will just laugh at me. But I was spending time away from the people I loved. I was being managed with fear. I was operating in this chaotic environment. You know, what it felt like to me was like I was going in every day in a rubber coat, yellow rubber coat, a helmet, plastic visor with an oxygen tank on my back, while the processes my teams were using were the equivalent of flicking lit cigarette butts everywhere while carrying sloshing gas cans, right? And we wondered why there were fires everywhere because we were typically setting them for ourselves. And then we hit the saddest story of all in our industry, the one that plays out way too often. Some statistics say it might be as high as 50% of projects never, ever see the light of day. They're worked on and then they're buried out in the backyard. The boss comes in and says, hey, Rich, great job in that project, but we're canceling it. It's not shipping. There is no joy in that for a team. There's only joy in engineering work when it goes out into the world and delights the people for whom it's intended. So in the midst of this deep trough of disillusionment, where I was thinking of running away, I made a decision that I was going to change something. I didn't know what it was, but I am wired as an optimist. If you put me in a room full of manure, I will keep digging, believing there's a pony in there somewhere, okay? And so my journey out led me to authors and books. Peter Senge's book, The Fifth Discipline, on the art and practice of building a learning organization. Peter Drucker's book on management, where he spent all kinds of time talking about how management needs a flexible workforce. My teams were anything but flexible in those days. You know, our industry is typically composed of towers of knowledge, so you can't move anybody anywhere. You're the Oracle 9.1.1.3 Service Pack 2 expert, and nobody else knows what you know, right? You know, I read Tom Peters' book, In Search of Excellence. I read John Naismith's book, Megatrends. All of these books were showing me a path out. They sort of described a city on a hill. They just didn't tell you how to get there. That was left as an exercise to the reader. But in 1999, I read a book and I saw a video within a couple of weeks of one another. And I had what Franz Johansson calls a click moment, where suddenly everything snapped into place for me. I read Kent Beck's book on extreme programming. I usually have to over-explain this book to many audiences I talk to, but here probably not so much. I usually have to tell people that extreme programming is not about programmers jumping off of cliffs with bungee cords or something like that. And then I saw a video that Nightline, a television show in the United States, did on IDEO, the industrial design firm. They tracked them for 5 days and watched them to redesign the shopping cart. It was a fictitious project, but in those videos, I saw a new way of working. I saw a new space for working. I saw a new focus on users. And between that book and that video and that click moment, I changed everything about the way my team worked. At the time, I was a vice president of R&D for one of the #1 public companies in Michigan. We were on a stock tear during the internet bubble years. I still have to work for a living because it went down just as fast. So it was an exciting ride. Wouldn't necessarily recommend it to anyone, but But in the next 2 years, as a VP of a very tired old public company, I transformed that organization to, quite frankly, what looks like Menlo today. And I might still be there had the internet bubble not burst. When that burst happened, when the NASDAQ crashed and hundreds of thousands of people were being laid off in the industry, my boss called me from California. We'd been acquired by a California firm, and he said, "Rich, we don't need your team anymore, and we don't need a VP anymore. You're out of work." I went home, I told my wife this story. She, in tears, looked at me. She said, "You're unemployed?" And I said, "No, honey, I'm an entrepreneur now." Remember, eternal optimist, right? It took her 6 months to figure out entrepreneurship actually pays less than unemployment. So the question I want to go with you down tonight is this. Does joy matter? Is it tangible? Can you feel it? Can you touch it? Can you see it? And does it make a business difference? Not just does it feel better, but is there business value to joy? And I will tell you that a lot of people come and visit. This was our tour count as of June 30th of this year, just for this year. 163 tours for over 2,200 visitors. We'll have over 4,000 people come through our doors this year alone just to visit. We do 1 to 3 tours a day now of Menlo. And we are in the basement of a parking structure in Ann Arbor, Michigan. I can tell you, it's not an easy place to get to. You can't even find it. And 4,000 people come through from all over the world now. Every continent is represented every year. They come to see it. And what they're looking for, I believe, is what it takes to build an intentionally joyful culture. They're trying to see if there are some lessons they can take away. Now, what I tell people who come to visit is this, 3 important things, and I want to tell you this tonight as well. Number 1, we are incredibly passionate about what we do, but we are by no means perfect. We are still on our journey. So don't confuse my passion, even tonight, with perfection. We are not perfect. Number 2, we don't expect anyone to copy us. In other words, we don't believe that you should make your company look like mine. That's your journey to take. But what you can do is you can come visit and you can decide for yourselves whether there are any elements that you want to take back with you to try. And then finally, what I tell our tour visitors, and I'll tell you this tonight, I'll try and leave enough time at the end for questions, that's where you start to dig in. That's where you start to find out more because of the questions you want to ask about what you're seeing. Now, when people walk in the door, they feel it. It's palpable. You can feel the human energy, and they are confronted with one of those vilified open office environments you've read about. The ones that Fast Company magazine says are an idea born in the mind of Satan in the deepest caverns of hell. Okay? People come in there like, "Rich, the psychiatrists have data that proves this doesn't work," right? Especially for introverted engineers, right? Introverted engineers need library quiet. And they look at us and they say, "So why does it work for Menlo and it doesn't seem to work anywhere else?" And I say it's very simple. We didn't build an open and collaborative workspace. We built an open and collaborative culture. Our workspace is a reflection of our culture. That's a very important distinction because what happens a lot of times is, somebody like Tim decides to start just tearing out glass one weekend. And everybody from Sipgate comes in and they're like, "Hey, Tim, where'd the glass go?" He's like, "Yeah, Rich said we should tear it out." "No, I didn't, Tim. I didn't say that." Because then not that it would happen here at Sipgate, but you take a bunch of people who don't even know each other and jam them out in a big open room, and they're like, "We don't even know these people. Who are these people?" Well, you worked with them for 5 years now. And it's a noisy environment at Menlo, which is almost antithetical to the software industry. We have very few rules at Menlo, but one of the strongest is you are forbidden from wearing earbuds while you're working. We want people to overhear the ideas of others. That idea of serendipity goes back to our namesake Menlo Park, New Jersey lab of Thomas Edison. This is the way Edison worked, one big open room, people working on different projects in the same space, overhearing the ideas of others. The human mind is such an incredible serendipity machine. We can overhear things that we didn't even hear correctly, but they can feed an idea into us to move something along. So it is a very noisy environment. We are, I wouldn't recommend this, but we are bossless. There is no hierarchy at Menlo. And the reason I say I don't recommend it is, if you don't want, one thing you could create real chaos in your company is get rid of your hierarchy overnight, right? We just never built one, so we didn't have to get rid of it. But at Menlo, we don't have an org chart, we don't have reporting relationships. You can actually see the teamwork. You can see the teams by the way the team is organized. The space itself is very important to us. It's very flexible. We have lightweight aluminum tables, no wheels, but the tables are so light they're just easy to move around. We have these pull downs from the ceiling so you can move the tables wherever you choose. We have no facilities people, no space police, no one overseeing where everything goes. The team has full autonomy over the space. They put the tables wherever they choose, and for all of our existence, they have chosen to push the tables front to front and side to side. That's their choice. There's no rule about that at Menlo as how close the tables are. They choose to work that close together. Now, the space changes in small ways every single day. Somebody has to move a table. A project is growing or shrinking. Somebody has an extra need, so they'll just pull a table over. But sometimes the team just gets bored with the current setup, and they come in on a Thursday night, 12-pack of beer, tear the place down to the bones, clean up all the dust, and then put it back together again in a completely different configuration. You come in, if you weren't part of that team the next morning, you're coming in going, what the heck just happened here? And it's interesting how a big space change like that can re-energize you. It's a little disorienting. Now, I sit out in the room with everybody else. There's no corner office. There's no gifted C-suite for the CEO. And a few months ago, I was sitting about here, and then I was moved. And they put me 35 feet closer to the front door. A move of equal magnitude, and I will be on the other side of the glass. So I'm trying to behave myself these days. But the space does energize us, and it's also very visual. You're going to see in a little bit that we use paper for a lot of things at Menlo. So we just keep all the walls open for and the pillars that are holding up 7 stories of parking structure above us are all very, push pinnable so we can put things in. And we built that learning organization that Peter sang he talked about in the 5th discipline. And we have books everywhere. You know, my co-founder, James Goebel, was so frustrated with his old company because when they would buy a book, the first thing you had to do was check it in and put it in a locked cabinet and check it out very carefully through a human being. And what he was frustrated with is no one ever touched the books, right? At Menlo, there's just books everywhere. We try and keep them organized, but we don't worry about keeping track of the books. If you want a book and we don't have it, we order it. When you're done with it, if you remember, put it back. We used to say in the old days, take a book, keep it as long as you want, and if you don't ever want to bring it back, just bring in a customer and you can keep the book. It's a very small sales compensation system. It wasn't necessarily effective. But book learning is still only a small part of our team. You see, we built it right into the core operating system of the company. The way we organize the people, we connect them intellectually, we connect them emotionally, we connect them physically. 2 people working on the same computer at the same time on the same task, the pairs are assigned, and we switch them every 5 working days. The human energy that results from this is palpable. You can just feel the energy when you're in the room. I know you'll have questions about pairing. It's probably one of the most commonly asked questions about pairing. You know, for example, you can ask, what do you do when 2 people don't get along with one another? And that does happen. So that's a good part of our operating system is that. But we knew we had to change some other things as well. Because what we understood more than anything was there were some broken conversations in the tech industry. a lot of the conversations we worked on first were inside the team, but we realized the most important conversations were the ones that were going to occur between the constituents of a software company, between the technical team and the business sponsor team. And then there's a set of people, we call them the lost tribe of technology. I'll talk about them in a little bit. And so we knew we had to change the conversation. We had to change how we communicated. I love this quote from John Naisbitt because it speaks to us in ways that are just profound given the century we're in right now. He wrote this in 1982. And he said the most important advancements that are going to occur in the 21st century are not going to occur because of technology, but because of an expanding concept of what it means to be human. Our technology is tending to separate us these days, isn't it? It's a risk we run. I was at a famous deli in Ann Arbor called Zingerman's. Maybe some of you know it. And there was two parents sitting there going like this while their two young children sat right near them. All I wanted to do was grab those parents and say, spend time with your kids. They grow up so fast. And what lessons are we teaching our kids when we're like this the whole time? I read a tweet by a 15-year-old recently who said, when I get older and I have a family, we are going to put our electronics away at dinner time. We're going to have the kind of dinners that my parents tell their friends we have today. And when we communicate internally, we don't use electronics at Menlo. This is one big open room. About 25,000 square feet. Don't know how that translates into square meters, but one big open room, one big open noisy room. And when we communicate with each other, we don't use electronics. We use what we like to call high-speed voice technology. It's awesome. The hardware is pre-installed at birth. Vocal cords, tympanic membranes, auditory nerve stimulation of the brain, supplemented by body language and eyebrows and tonal inflection. In fact, if we want to call an all-company meeting at Menlo, do you guys have meetings where you work? How many of you have meetings where you work? Okay, we believe meetings are mind-numbing, spirit-sucking, energy-draining devices of management, so we pretty much have eliminated them, and the ones we do have, we keep short. So if we want to call an all-company meeting, you're going to practice this with me. This is going to be a little frightening, actually. I'm going to say, hey, Menlo, and you're going to say, hey, Rich. Hey, Menlo! Hey, Rich! And the whole place goes quiet. And now I'm in an all-company meeting with my team, just like that. Now, anybody can do this. If you come to visit, you can walk in the front door, and you can just walk in and say, hey, Menlo, and they'll go, hey, you. And then they'll all go quiet. And they'll be waiting for you to ask a question, to say something. So you should have something. You can just say, Rich told me to try this, and then thank you, and they'll all go back to work, okay? That way you can avoid the discomfort of having 60 people staring at you, waiting for the meeting to start. And then they all go back to work. Our typical all-company meetings last about 7 to 10 seconds. No CC all emails, no book the conference room, no checking of calendars, Corinna was talking about just the 3-person meeting having, 9 emails go back and forth with anybody. We don't have that. We do have one meeting a day, our daily stand-up. It's called by a dartboard on the wall. This is Menlo. The dartboard has an alarm clock. Why a dartboard needs an alarm clock? No idea. Okay. But it was programmable. And we're programmers. We programmed it. And it went off. It goes off at 10 o'clock every morning. Bong, 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 bong. And everybody, like Stepford children, goes to the circle. We'll have a stand-up of 60, 70, 80 people. We've had people tell us, you can't do that. We're like, okay, we'll keep doing it till it doesn't work. And it still keeps working. Everybody comes. I'm serious. The dogs always come to stand up. And the meeting itself is controlled by a plastic Viking helmet. That's why there's a Viking helmet on the cover of the book. It has become the iconic symbol of Menlo. We have no Danish roots. We're Detroit Lions fans, for goodness sakes, not Minnesota Viking fans, but But the plastic Viking helmet has a simple, practical, fun value. It has 2 horns. And when we report out in our pairs. So having a 2-handle token is actually really convenient. Here's Tracy and Ned reporting out. Here's Nate and Katie, 2 of our programmers reporting out. Here's Thomas and Carol, 2 of our high-tech anthropologists reporting out. The token goes around the meeting. People talk about what they're working on. They talk about where they need help, any general announcements for the team. And when it gets to the last people, they say, be careful out there, and put the token down, and we go back to work. The meeting usually takes 13 minutes. I defy most companies to begin a meeting of 60 people in 13 minutes, let alone call it, assemble it, start it, hold it, give everyone a chance to talk, complete it, and get back to work in 13 minutes. The main reason it goes so fast is because we don't solve problems at the meeting. We only raise them. If you want to work on a problem, you talk to the people who had the problem after the meeting. And then we change the conversation with our customers. In the spirit of the best things you learned in life, you learned in kindergarten, we have a show and tell every 5 days. Everything at Menlo works in a 5-day cycle. So we work in this 5-day cycle, and then we reconnect with our customers, the people who are paying us to do work. What we do for a living is we design and develop software for other companies. We are a contract software design and development firm. So every 5th day, we meet with our clients in a show and tell so they can review the work and see what they like and what they don't. Now, what's interesting about our show and tells, particularly when we're heavy duty into software development, is we have our customers show us the software we built the last 5 days. We don't show it to them. We switch the roles. We put them front and center, it's our customer right here, at the keyboard and the mouse while the software that's being developed is projected on the screen. The team is presenting. Here's Eric, one of the programmers who worked on this part of the software, and the client touches the software. Because you see, one of the biggest problems with software is it's theoretical until you can actually see it, feel it, and touch it. So our customers are front and center. Because one of the things we're trying to avoid is that meeting behavior that you all know, the one where we disengage in meetings. You have any of those meetings where you notice somebody's disengaged? This is what it usually looks like. You know, somebody's at the meeting and then they say, hey, Rich, I think you had something to say about this. Oh, I'm sorry, were you talking to me? Where were we at? I'm sorry, what were we talking? I was checking my Twitter feed. You ever see that behavior in a meeting? Kill those meetings. Because the people in them are saying they have no value for me. In fact, most people, you know what they're doing when they're doing that? They're getting ready for the next meeting. We can stop this vicious cycle right now. So our customers show us the work we did the previous 5 days, and you know what happens sometimes? They look and go, huh, I'm sorry, is that what you thought we meant? It's not what we meant at all. And our answer is, awesome. We worked on a story in less than 5 days later, we found out we got it wrong. Make mistakes faster. So the core sort of mantra at Menlo is, it's not that we prefer making mistakes. We know we are going to make mistakes because we're human. We're simply acknowledging that. But what we want to do is make them quickly so we can correct them while they're still small. Sometimes the customer looks at what we did and says, you know what, that's exactly what I was hoping you'd create. But now that I see it, it's not what we need. Boom, yes, make mistakes faster. Sometimes the customer's wrong. That's okay. This isn't about proving who's right or who's wrong. This is about getting to the goal as quickly as possible. And then we go into a part of Menlo that just surprises people because we're a software company. Do you guys know who the Amish are in the United States? Maybe you have them here too, I don't know. Well, a lot of people refer to us as the Amish of software development when they see the way we plan, right? Because we don't use software to plan. We use little handwritten index cards. These are photocopies of originals. What I like about these is this. Can you hear that? You can hear it back there, can't you? You know how many neurons I'm lighting up in your brain right now just by doing this? You know what's amazing is You all know what this tastes like, too. I don't know why we need to know what it tastes like, but we do, right? I have a 7-month-old granddaughter now. Man, everything's just going in her mouth. You know, it's like she's cataloging something. I'm not sure what it is. Humans are very visual, tactile creatures. So we choose tools not because they're high technology or low technology. We choose tools we believe work better for humans. And a paper-based planning system, in our view, works better for humans. We write the cards, we estimate them, and we fold the card to the size of the estimate. This is a 16-hour card, this is an 8-hour card. Do you see the spatial relationship between these two? If you're not getting it yet, here's what a 4-hour card looks like, okay? 32 we tape to a full-size sheet of paper, okay? So you can see the spatial relationship. So when we lay these little planning tokens down on the table, the customer can not only look at them and see if what's on the card has value, but they can see the relative cost of these features compared to one another. And when they decide they want them, they pick them up and they lay them down on a planning sheet. So that's what you're seeing here. So you can fit one of these 32-hour cards on a planning sheet. So we do this crazy thing at Menlo. We only work 40-hour work weeks at Menlo. It's almost unheard of in the software industry. Our industry is the industry of death march culture, of 24/7, people working round the clocks, bringing their sleeping bags to work. We wanted a humanly sustainable pace. What we wanted to give our team more than anything else is a chance, as Deming says, to work with pride. Tired programmers make bad software. It's as simple as that. So we plan 40 hours worth of work for each pair, and this is what it looks like. So the customer picks up these cards and they lay them down on the planning sheet. That didn't break, isn't that cool? And it's a conversation. It's a multi-user system. A lot of people can gather around. It's not everybody looking at Jira around a little computer screen. The conversation proceeds, the cards move on onto the table. The customers get very involved in this. It's a collaborative effort with our team. And what's interesting is, I'm just going to flip back to this picture. Have you ever heard don't know how well this translates into German, but in American meetings, at the end of the meeting, a boss or somebody who's running the meeting will look at the team and say, so we're all on the same page, right? You ever hear a phrase like that? Is there a translation in German? Wir sind alle auf die eigene Seite or something like that? I don't know. You can tell I'm not very good at dasselbe Seite. We're all on the same page. Well, at Menlo, when we say we're all on the same page, we are literally all on the same page, right? You know, because if you want to be annoying at one of those meetings, we're all on the same page, say, yeah, I'm okay being on the same page. Is it the whiteboard or the flip chart or the laptop or the email that comes out? I'm okay being on the same page, boss. You just got to tell me which page we're talking about. But in our world, we are all literally on the same page. And then, if you want to be even more annoying at that same meeting, say, what did we decide not to do? Right? Because we usually don't think about that, right? But in our world, you can actually see what we decided not to do. It's that obvious. The only things we will work on are the things that are on the planning sheets. If they're not on the planning sheets, they don't go on the plan. Now I can tell you, customers bristle at this. Everybody wants to get more done in the same amount of time, and they'll grab that one. They're like, this is really important. Like, really? Then put it in the plan. Yeah, well, it doesn't fit. Oh, really? Because let me show you. Let me teach you our project management system, okay? We're going to take you through a little class here. All right? Add. That was the add function. Delete. Now we'll get advanced. Edit. Edit back. Undo, you know. Okay, you've just learned our project management system. Try that with Microsoft Project sometime. So our clients have to choose. There's, you know, a company, a product, an industry defines itself not only by what it says yes to, but what it chooses to say no to. It's the only way you get things done. Otherwise, projects keep going and keep going and keep going, right? And this system destroys what I call hallway project management. You know how that works when you get out of a meeting, everybody agreed to the plan, we're all on the same page, and then the boss is going, hey, Rich, come here, just one more thing. I've seen this movie before. It's one more thing, one more thing, one more thing, one more thing, and then they complain that I never got anything done. Well, it wasn't what you planned, that's what it. So again, very collaborative, very invested effort. All supported by simple, handwritten artifacts. There's a reason we like to handwrite the artifacts, and it's for one simple cognitive psychology reason. We believe it is cognitively impossible not to read something you wrote by hand. Whereas a document you create with cut and paste, cut and paste, cut and paste, grab the attachment from the email, throw it in, you can end up with a 16-page story card that no one read. It's also nice to do it on a small index card. We standardize on 5.5 inch by 8.5 inch index cards. About half of a A3, right? And the idea is that we keep it small because, you know, there's that old saying that says, I was going to write you a short letter, but I didn't have time, so I wrote you a long one. We're forcing people to get to the point, not a lot of extra verbiage and that sort of thing. And then when we get done planning, a project manager creates a work authorization board. All the work for that team, for that week, for that project goes up. This is the Chauvis project right here. Each one of these swim lanes represents 2 people on that team. So we've got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12 programmers, 1 QA team, 1 high-tech anthropology team. So 16 people on the project for 5 days. Every swim lane represents what people are supposed to be working on for the next 5 days in the order they're supposed to be working on them. That's the broad expectation. The cards are placed next to the day that we expected them to complete based on the estimate that came from the people who are doing the work. We don't hand anybody estimates. They have total freedom as to what the estimate should be. The gaps indicate that a card down here is a 32-hour card, so they're going to need 4 days to work on it. Remember, we're looking for a humanly sustainable pace here. And so the pairs work in their lanes. They work from top to bottom, and the status is marked out with colorful sticky dots. Yellow says that's what we're working on right now. You only have 1 yellow dot in your lane. We work on one thing at a time until we get stuck or until we're done. When you think you're done, you put an orange dot on your card with your pair partner. How many of you are programmers here? Okay. How many of you work with programmers? Okay. First 20 years of my professional career was writing code, so understand what I'm about to say is pointing at me. Programmers have as many different definitions for done as Eskimos have words for snow, right? You've heard them all. Well, it's done, but it's not done. Right? Well, it's ready, but it's not complete. Well, it's complete, but it's not deliverable. I could keep going with these. And then there's the very special relationship of done between the programmers and the QA team. See, the programmers are done, and then QA starts checking their work, and they find something. It's not working. So they go back to the programmers and say, hey guys, found some problems here. What's the most likely response from the programmers in that moment? Yeah, it works on my machine. Any QA people in the room? Anybody, anywhere, any QA? Oh, no, none? Oh, too bad. You'll never tell them what I'm about to tell you. I know you won't. Because I tell QA people, if a programmer ever says, well, it worked on my machine, grab their machine and ship it to the customer. Now, when QA checks your work and they like what they see, you get a green dot. If QA, and that's endorphin rush for the programmers. Yay, green dot. If QA checks your work and doesn't like what you see, you get a red dot. That's endorphin rush for the QA team. Now, QA people get a bad rap because understand the heart of the QA team. They want to break it when it's still in the room. They don't want it to go out in the world broken. They take it personally when it gets broken out there. So we want to value that. And then there's that lost tribe. I want to spend a minute or two just talking about the lost tribe of technology. We call them users. Well, actually, let's be honest, since we're among friends here, we call them stupid users. And then we write dummies books for those poor people because they can't understand our wonderful architecture, right? Our mission at Menlo from the very beginning days was to end human suffering in the world as it relates to technology. And there's plenty of it out there. We will never be done with this work, okay? Now, so we had to introduce something new, and what we introduced was anthropology. We have people on our team who are called high-tech anthropologists. Their job, go out into the world and study users in their native environment. Learn their workflow, their habits, their vocabulary, learn what's important to them as human beings. This is very important to technology because too often software is designed by smart programmers in whiteboarded rooms. Oh, I know how users think. No, you don't. You've never actually met one. Right? We worked on a handheld diesel motor diagnostic tool once. It's going to be a touchscreen device for our customer. They were 30 years into this business. We knew nothing about diesel motor diagnostics. The first visit out into the world, we watched a guy named Bubba working on a bus. And the first thing he did was put on rubber gloves to do his work to keep his hands away from the chemicals that occur in diesel motor vehicles these days. And our anthropologist simply noted down, Bubba wears rubber gloves when he works. Okay? They brought that information back to our technical team, and the technical team said, oh, this is going to be a big problem. Well, why? Well, they're using capacitive technology for the touchscreen. It's not going to work if he's wearing rubber gloves. And their answer was, well, he's going to have to take off his gloves whenever he uses it. Like, these are big, strong men. They can break that device over the corner of a table as quick as anything. So we call up our customer. We said, hey, guys, you've been in this business for 30 years. We've been in it for 2 hours. We found something we think is going to kill the adoption of your product in the marketplace. And they said, really? What? I mean, what could that possibly, what could you possibly learn? We said, do you know your users wear rubber gloves when they work? There was dead silence. Finally, one of their engineers said, they do? One of their other engineers said, man, you guys are so lucky. We said, well, why is that? And they said, you get to talk to our end users. He says, I've been here 12 years. I've never even met one. So if you've ever wondered why high-tech tools frustrate people, it's because of that. We want to use empathy and compassion. We want to understand the hearts and minds of the people we're serving, because our definition of joy at Menlo is to see our work get out into the world and delight the people for whom it's intended. I want to reproduce that feeling I had with my mom when I was 10. I want people to come back and say, I love this software. If they're going to cry, I want them to cry with delight, not with frustration. We use a lot of paper tools here. This is a tool filled with personas, which you've probably heard of, but we create this targeted map here where can I step on this? Is this okay? Who knew you could do user-centered design by putting the user in the center of the design? I know it's a crazy idea, but this tool drives every decision we make about the user experience. The person in the middle is a very specific description of a type of person. In this particular case, it's Kathleen. She's the mother of a bride for a fictional website that we use for training called wedding.com. Kathleen will help plan her daughter's wedding with this. The bride herself is out at the third tier. Mom doesn't want to be confused with all the social media stuff. She wants that hidden away. So maybe we put a button on the home screen that just says for brides only to keep all the confusing stuff away from Kathleen. And the daughter appreciates that there's a special place just for her. Our anthropologists are synthesizers. When they go out into the world, they're bringing back ambiguity. Their job is to turn that ambiguity into specificity, to filter it all down. We're a favorite of 3M Corporation. They use a lot of tools, mind maps and brainstorming sessions and post-it notes to figure out what are the most important things and how do we boil that user experience down. Their job is to take all that information and perfectly describe pixel by pixel the user's experience, and then take that back out into the world and make sure it's actually working. Because we make lots of mistakes here too. We think we heard one thing, we find out it was actually different. But the idea here is simple. We introduced anthropology because of our mission to end human suffering. We wanted to understand the people we were serving. And this goes to the heart of joy for us. Now, I want to leave you guys with a story out of the book. And you're going to think it's a story about dogs and babies. And it is a story about dogs and babies. But that's not the point. The point is this. When you come to a session like this, or you read the book, or you go to a conference, or you get an idea from a friend, you know what happens. You're going to go back tomorrow and you're going to say to the first person you meet, plastic Viking helmets is the key solution. Right? And somebody will say, that won't work here. Right? And right there, the idea dies, doesn't it? Whatever it is, you bring it in, the first colleague you meet, you're so excited, and they're like, oh, that won't go here. HR will, say no, or, management will have nixed those kind of ideas for years, and boop, dies right then and there, right? And where's Julia? Is Julia here? Is she here? Oh, okay. Oh, there she is. Hi, Julia. I did not mean to make fun of HR, okay? I'm going to do that in a minute, okay? Julie and I had a good conversation about HR stuff last night. We'll probably have more of that tonight after what I'm about to say. But the idea is this. As soon as somebody pushes back on your idea, shrug your shoulders and say, yeah, I know. Let's run the experiment. Let's try something before we defeat it. Let's see if we can get some results. Sometimes the results you get are unexpected. 8 years ago, Tracy had her second child, little Maggie. She took 3 months of maternity leave off. She wanted to come back to work. She came to me and said, Rich, I'm ready to come back to work. I said, awesome, we miss you. How soon can you be back? She says, well, there's one problem. The daycare we want to put Maggie in is full. Grandparents live too far away. My husband, John, and I don't know what to do. Now, in this moment, there was a little screaming match in my head. Tracy never heard it. It was like the dark voice and the bright voice, The dark voice said, don't you dare. HR will kill you. The insurance rates will go through the roof. The lawyers will freak out. The bright voice said, more quietly, it's your company. You don't even have an HR department. So I looked at Tracy and I said, bring her in. Now, if I had a camera at that moment, you should have seen the look of bewilderment on her face. She was like, all day? I said, yeah. She said, every day? I said, why not? Now, she was testing me, right? She wanted to see if I thought this through and how much. And the answer was not very much, okay? A little scream. Bring her in. And she looked around that big open room. She says, Rich, where am I going to put her? I said, Tracy, she's 3 months old. She's not going anywhere. Just put her on the floor in a bassinet wherever you're working. And she said, but what if she fusses? I said, it's like a noisy restaurant here. You'll never hear it. She goes, come on, Rich. What about that big baby fuss you know she's going to do? And I looked at her and I said, Tracy, you're the mom. I trust you. I trust you. You'll do the right thing. We'll work it out together. Let's run the experiment. Now, isn't she cute? That is not Maggie. That's Ellie. Ellie is Menlo baby number 8 out of 13 in the last 8 years. We are a prolific crowd at Menlo. This has nothing to do with the pairing, by the way. And there were moments where things happened we didn't expect. Of course they would. It's a baby. The baby would fuss. We expected that. But what happened when the baby fussed, what got interesting? It was seldom Tracy, the mom, who had to rescue Maggie. The team would be like, no, it's my turn to hold the baby. I lead a lot of tours at Menlo. The moms figured out after a time that if it's right around nap time and Rich is leading a tour, give the baby to the CEO. Because he only needs one hand to point to things, and he can hold the baby, and he's got a deep voice and a warm chest, and the baby would be like... Ellie learned to pair program. Ellie went to design meetings. Henry came back to visit. This is Menlo baby number 7. This is actually Menlo mom number 1. That's Tracy. That's Fern the dog. And then we found out something even more special. We found out that our customers behave better when you bring a baby to a meeting. It's like, boom. They don't raise their voice. They don't swear at you anymore. They're like, oh, you guys are, can I hold the baby? Joy. You know, I told the parents, I gathered them together, there were 3 moms right at the beginning of this experiment. 2 of them were still pregnant. Tracy had already had the baby. And I just looked at them and I said, guys, here's what I want. I want you guys to experience the first if you can. If there's a moment you might see at work, a first word, a first rollover, anything like that, I want you to see it here, if that's possible. I just want you to have that experience, and I want this to work for you, so tell us what we need to do for you. It's been a delightful experiment. Henry's practicing his management skills here. Hey, how's it going? What you working on? You coming in this weekend? Got your TPS reports done? And then this happened. We've always had dogs at Menlo. I know you have some dogs here at SIPGate too. I met one of them this morning. Awesome. And, but this was a different story about a dog. This is Michael here. Michael was coming in for a show and tell, his weekly show and tell, and he called us up and he says, hey, do you mind if I bring Buster with me to the show and tell? And we said, sure, who's Buster? He says, my Great Dane. And we're like, oh. So Buster came in with Michael. I can tell you it's like a small horse coming in. Buster came up to me, put his paws up here, and his head is like here on me. And but gentle, gentle creature. Buster would go into our show and tell room, and he would, these glass doors are sliding glass doors, and he would just stick his claws in there, and he'd pull the doors open far enough so he could stick his nose out into the smell of Menlo. And what I realized in this moment is it's a fun story, but I thought, you know, something different just happened here. What was happening was our customer was choosing to be one of us. He was becoming one of our tribe. He was participating in our culture. Michael couldn't bring his dog into where he worked, not because they are a bad company, but because it wouldn't be appropriate based on what they do for a living. Dogs shouldn't be in their company. That's okay. But when he was coming to visit Menlo, he decided to become a part of our tribe. And that's a special thing. If we can create a culture that's inviting enough that our customers start participating in our culture, we've created something, I think, very special. And that was a neat moment. Buster became a good friend of the Menlo dogs as well. But on top of all of this, we cannot trade away why we exist, and that is to create solid working software for the world. There's no question there's trouble in the world around software these days. There's almost not a day goes by that you don't pick up a business magazine or a business newspaper where you don't hear about some major failure of software. Starbucks learned they cannot sell coffee without software. American Airlines, United Airlines learned you can't book flights without software. The New York Stock Exchange found out you can't sell stock without software. The Wall Street Journal found out you can't publish news without software. Heck, apparently we found out you can't even have an affair without software. So there is software in everything. Our business and our nations and our world economy depends on it today. We must approach it with rigor and discipline. We have a lot of fun at Menlo, but there's one thing we take very seriously, and that's the creation of the software we have. There's a lot of, I think a lot of advancements that have occurred. I think automated unit testing frameworks are probably the single most important advancement in computer science since I've been in this industry. It's interesting. The thing I wanted to avoid in Menlo was to avoid emergencies. That was my life before, when I'd come in the metaphorical fireman's outfit. The last time our team remembers a software emergency at Menlo was 2004. Our phones don't ring off the hook with problems. We don't have a support team. We don't have a helpline. We don't have a support desk. It's not that we're perfect, but we have orders of magnitude less problems than any software team I ever led in the past. And ultimately, our goal, as Peter Senge describes in his book, The Fifth Discipline, is to build a learning organization, because in the long run, it is the only source of competitive advantage, is our company's ability to learn faster than the competition. I believe this applies to companies, to products, and to nations. I'm happy to take questions now. Thank you so much for your wonderful invitation and your wonderful reception here. Thanks. Vielen Dank.
All right, thank you.
I'm going to point out two things because I'll forget. This is for you. There's copies of the slides and that sort of thing, so you can go there. I'm in a little bit of a competition with my co-founder right now, because we both give these kind of talks, and we know how many times you guys do this, and he just tore the cover off the balls. We like saying baseball the other day. So if you guys download like 100 of these in the next 24 hours, he'll be like, "Oh my gosh, Rich, you're amazing." And I'm close to 5,000 Twitter followers, so you can just follow. Don't worry about that one. Just go to that one. I'm in competition with our marketing team as to who has more Twitter followers. So, but anyways, happy to take questions. And I can repeat the question if people are far away. Yes, so the question is, when we're doing show and tell, what do we do when a customer's far away? More and more of our customers are too far away to come in every week. What we try and do is meet with them in person at least once a month. And what we do in that case is we'll go visit them once a month, and then they'll come visit us, so that we're not putting the onus of travel on either side too much for that. And then when they're far away, we do the best electronic version of show and tell that we can, with cameras and big screens and that sort of thing.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, perfect.
Well, first of all, thanks very much for your fantastic talk.
Thank you.
I think it was great. I'd like to go back to where you started off, which is the source of joy for you as a programmer. And I think I can share that. I was very surprised to see your embracing of noise in the workplace at Menlo. So one source of joy for me as a programmer, which I've been doing for 20 years now, is the experience of flow. Which means you being totally absorbed by what you're doing, and coming out of that experience and having done like something which you couldn't believe you could have done in that amount of time. So I don't feel that's possible with noise in the workplace as much as you described. So how does that work for you?
Yeah, it's a great question. And actually, you experienced flow here tonight in this room. When you were in one-on-one conversations with people, you were in flow, in a big, noisy environment. Now, I will tell you, I don't believe you could get the flow we get at Menlo, and we do, without the pairs. Okay? And the pairs create noise between them, but the mind is an amazing filter. If you think about in this room, you could be talking to people, and what is your name, sir? Mario. And if, even in the noise of the room, if somebody said, "Hey, Mario," you'd be like, oh, right? There's a part of your brain that's always, if you ever have children, you know, little babies, and as they grow up and they yell out, Daddy, and you're like, where are they, right? You will never forget that. My kids are older now. I can be in a room full of kids, and somebody yells, Daddy, I'm like, where are they? Where's my kid, right? So it is an acquired skill, no question. The team reports that it takes about 3 weeks for the brain to quiet down the noise. What's different at Menlo, it is the noise of work, so it is a consistent noise, as opposed to the quiet cube farm where you have the annoying person on the cell phone, and everybody's like, what are they talking about? What are they talking about? We don't have that at Menlo. So, but I don't think you can achieve the kind of flow we achieve without the pairs. It's a great question, though. I think it's probably one of the most common things people are curious about is that aspect.
I think it's someone.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Hi.
Hi.
Great to see so many examples of how to do business differently, and it seems it works. But unfortunately, it's...
We're 14 years old, and we're privately, you know, we only wrote one check in. So far, the business is also working.
Okay.
My wife is, now she says, I'm really glad you did this, honey.
But it seems to be the exception and not the rule or the norm. Why do you think is this, and what, do you see any hope that...
I do, and I do see hope, because quite frankly, and I will tell you there's hope right here in Sipgate. I mean, when I come see this company, they're not exactly like Menlo.
There's still many other examples, but
yep.
The great norm is, you know how it works.
Agreed, absolutely. That it is still the preponderance that are fear-based organizations, right? Now, what I will tell you is there is hope right here in this room. You know, I'm serious. I mean, you guys all have somewhere else to be. You could have gone home tonight. The folks here at Sipgate said this is the biggest crowd that's ever gathered for one of these events. Now, I know it's the food, okay? I'm not confused why you're here, okay? But you could have left right after you ate, right? There is hope just in the fact that all of you showed up here to be here tonight. Understand, you have far more influence than perhaps you think you do. You know, I didn't have to be the CEO when I first did this. I decided that I was going to run away from risk, and the risk I was running away from was the risk of me, my heart. What I wanted to do for a living was at risk, and I didn't want to be there anymore. And so I started running towards change, not because it was fearful, because it was safety. It was running away from the thing I was afraid of, and that was losing my heart for what I did as a profession. Because a young man, I was still in my 30s at the time, I didn't know what I was going to do the rest of my days if I couldn't do the thing that I loved to do. So don't underestimate your capacity to make a difference. Maybe it's just within a small team, within a large organization. You don't have to change the world, just change your world. Start there. Run a small experiment. See if you can get some traction. You know, one of the reasons I want you to read the book is I tell the story of how I did it. Because I know that you want to hear stories. It's not that your story should be just like mine, but what the world is yearning for are some examples. And I think that's why 4,000 people will come through Menlo this year alone. So understand there's two things I get to see because of who I am now and because of the book I wrote. One is I get invited to amazing companies like this one, which gives me hope that we're not alone. We're rare still, but we're not alone. And number two, given the number of people who come to see us or the number of people who attend these events, there is clearly a yearning. And where there's a yearning, there's a possibility, there's hope for a better future. Don't give up. Keep going. It's hard. It's really hard.
Thanks for your presentation, Rich.
Thank you.
My question relates to something you touched upon earlier towards the end. It's the question of how you handle emergencies and stress. Like, I mean, you said it's reduced, but it should be still.
Yep. I mean, we're a regular team. Things come up, that sort of thing. What's different about Menlo, and this is where our industry always broke, and the industry has progressed in amazing ways, the software industry. You know, I think over the course of my life, from 1971 to today, in the early days, individual heroes could create great software. It's no longer the case. Teams of human beings have to work together. We have to figure out the teamwork component. Because you see, when I was on my journey, I realized the changes I needed to make were not technological changes. They were organizational changes. They were human organizational changes. That's what was important. And one of the things that I was struggling with, either when I was a programmer myself or when I was a leader of programming teams, was a tower of knowledge problem. The one person on the team that knew everything about one piece of the system and nobody else knew what they knew. And the only way to scale that is overtime. And the trouble is that doesn't really scale. Because that person's too busy to bring somebody else on. And what are they going to teach them anyways? Right? The skill sets don't match. So this is where pairing really comes in, and the switching of the pairs every 5 days. So what we are always doing, in answer to your question about what happens when we need to get more done in the same amount of time, we can do something most software teams can't. We can add more people and get more work done. Because we're constantly in a state of preparing for scaling. If there's 8 people on a team and every week on those 4 pairs, we're switching the pairs around, bringing in another 8 people even is not a crazy idea. Because what we'll do is we'll bring those 8 people and we'll pair them with the original 8. Suddenly the team goes from 8 to 16 almost overnight. And it's not a perfect linear scale, but it goes up. And within a few weeks, we've got a team of 16 performing at a very high rate of speed. It's amazing. So when our customer comes and says, guys, we really need to get this done, we don't have to turn on the overtime switch. 14 years in, we work 40-hour work weeks. We never work weekends. We never deny or delay vacation requests. And when you hit the door at the end of a day at Menlo, you're done working. You have to be in the room to work. We don't offer VPNs from home or anything like that. And when you go on vacation, we forbid you from checking email. Why? This isn't like, you know, namby-pamby People's Republic of Ann Arbor business value of joy stuff here, okay? This is serious business joy. What we want more than anything is to have that chance to work with pride, to produce software that doesn't produce emergencies. That's why in this previous slide, I talk about automated unit testing frameworks. The combination of pair programming and automated unit testing frameworks and then switching the pairs every 5 days strengthens the code every single week. It's absolutely amazing. I've never seen anything like it. We're working on projects that we've been working on a piece of software over the course of a 10-year period. It's out in the marketplace. Never once has this team come to me and said, Rich, we need to redo it. We need to start over. We need to do version 2. I've never seen that in my career. It's absolutely amazing. Thanks for your question. Let's see one there.
Hello, Rich. Thank you for your inspiring talk. I have a question about this planning meetings with the customers. When do you plan all the requirements you do have in your planning meetings?
Yes.
Is there any special moment where the team is?
So what happens is in this meeting, this is a rolling requirements gathering process. The cards themselves are typically written by our high-tech anthropologists because they're the ones going out into the world and discovering what the needs are. But of course, our customer has strong opinions about this too. They're not going to just turn everything over to our team and say, hey, you guys just do whatever needs to be done. That wouldn't even make sense, right? The champion of the project is the person who's paying us to do the work. And so they're going to influence how these cards are written. But all of these cards are the requirements for the project. There is no activity that occurs on any of our projects that first isn't handwritten down in an index card, estimated in hours, folded to the size of the estimate, and the only time we'll ever work on those cards is when the customer picks them up and puts them down on a planning sheet. So they have absolute control over progress.
My question is, I was confused because you said just showed us the copies, and you talked about handwritten papers, and those are handwritten papers.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, yes, they are. Yep, it's the same. Yeah, same handwritten cards there. Yep. So over here.
Okay, so it seems that these pairs work together like really intensive, 5 days long. So a question you said that would come, what if a team doesn't get along very well?
What do we do when 2 people don't get along? and it happens. I mean, we're all, these are just all regular human beings, by the way. We have a very unusual interviewing process. I'm happy to describe it if somebody's interested, but you'll have to ask me. So when we do tours, this question often comes up because they see these people working and they're like, this is unnatural, right? You know, it's like humans are not meant to work this closely for this long. What do you do when two people don't get along? So I go over and ask the team. Or I have them ask the questions, and they're like, so you guys get along with everybody here? I mean, you're just like everybody? And the team will immediately, oh no. You know, they'll be very honest about it. And this is, so what do you do? And they'll smile sometimes, and they'll say, well, you know, it's only 40 hours. I can put up with anybody for 40 hours. Now, truth be told, what they'll tell you after that, though, is that sometimes that feeling that you and I might not get along doesn't actually bear out when we actually work together. We start to find out things about each other that, oh, she's not as bad as everybody told me she'd be. Everybody told me you were a keyboard hog, but I see you sharing the keyboard a lot and that sort of thing. We spend a lot of time at Menlo, though, working on interpersonal communication skills. That's why in the back of the book I have a set of books that I call recommended teachers. The books from Vital Smarts, Crucial Conversations, Crucial Confrontations, Crucial Accountability, incredibly important books in our practice. How to, you know, I think if we could teach our children 3 things, we could change the world. Number 1, how to present ideas to others who don't know what you know in front of a group. Number 2, how to have a meaningful conversation with another human being when things aren't going well, right? And number 3, how to manage your money. If we could just do those 3 things, imagine what would happen in Washington, D.C. if we could teach people to behave like that, right? Explain things to us, get along with other people, and manage money. That would all be neat. So, you know, we spend a lot of time on that interpersonal communication stuff. And if it doesn't work, we want them to talk with one another. That's very important. In the old days, we used to say, oh, come and talk to me, and then I'll talk to them. Oh, no, that's a bad thing, right? We don't need to add a third party into this. And what I tell the team is this. I said, look, if you're having trouble with another person, you know what you do, don't you? You're like, boy, they got a problem. Huh. You think it's possible you might be the problem? Oh, no, that's not possible. I'm perfect. I mean, they're the ones with the problem. So what I teach the team when I coach them on this is number 1 question when 2 people aren't getting along. When something's going wrong, stop, take a breath, look at the other person and say, are you okay? That's a very important question. Think about all the things that could be going on outside of work in their lives. Somebody's sick, somebody died, could be even a pet is in trouble. And just that is enough. Could be just a flat tire. Could be just you got out of bed the wrong way this morning. But the idea to ask the other person, are you okay? And if they say, yeah, I'm okay, then turn it towards yourself first and say, hey, I'm just curious how the week went for you. Did I do okay? Well, you know, you talk a lot. Which would be very true for me. So we actually practice having these conversations. We actually have little role plays in the team so we can get past those speed bumps, because those are important ones. We don't want everybody just getting along. That's not the important. We need to have productive conflict.
I would like to know about this fabulous interviewing process that you spoke of.
There we go. Okay, so you have to remember many things that I have encouraged at Menlo was because I looked back on my own personal managerial career and said there were things I just hated about being a manager or a director or a vice president, and hiring was at the top of the list. I hated the entire process, right? Well, okay. Sometimes firing is good, though. We'll talk about that too. You can ask me about firing if you want, okay? But so why did I hate the hiring process? Because everything about it just seemed wrong to me. Ultimately, it usually culminated in the standard 2 people sitting across the table lying to each other for 2 hours, right? What is your name? Alicia. Alicia, are you a team player, Alicia? Oh, that's awesome. I love that about you. Do you like people? Oh, wonderful, strong teams. We are a strong team, and you love strong teams. That's amazing. I can't believe we've met. Alicia, if you were day of the week, what day would you be?
A Monday, because I love coming to work.
Oh, that's perfect. Oh, yes. Yes, Alicia. Right. And let me tell you what a great place this is to work. You're going to love it here. We're a great team. We get along always. You know, I mean, it's like heaven here at our company.
You know I want 3 figures, right?
Oh, yeah,
right.
It's just amazing, right? So, so what we decided to do was change the entire interview process. We don't ask any questions, ever, of the person who's interviewing. And we don't look at resumes.
Do you just like surprise them? They come in the door thinking they're going to get a normal interview, and then you, what, send the dogs at them, or what? What do you do?
Oh, listen to the people person over here. Sick the dogs on them.
And the babies?
Yeah, here, hold a baby. Let's see how you deal with that now. Yeah, we're going to have to talk afterwards,
All
Alicia.
Right.
Yeah. You want to read this? No.
I'm definitely going.
So, no, there's no surprises. Actually, we predict all ahead, or we don't predict, we inform them ahead of time. We've had a cover story in Inc. magazine on our interview process, so it can't possibly be a secret. But we actually send everybody who's coming a white paper that describes it down to the level of detail so they know what to expect. Now, we can't make them read it, of course, and they still might doubt that it's going to go the way it goes. But what we do is we bring about 50 people in at a time. So imagine, 50 of you come in. And what we do, it's a mass interview. We pair you during the interview with another person who's interviewing. And then we give you the weirdest instructions ever. We say your job is to get the person you're paired with a second interview. Make your partner look good. Now, of course, in your mind, you're like, but wait, I want the second interview. Yes, we know. We're pretty good at seeing. But what we're looking at is, are you a good kindergartner? Do you play well with others? Do you not hit, bite, scratch, swear, run through the room with scissors over your head? This is really important to us because of the way we work. So we pair you together for 20 minutes. We give you an exercise to work on. You get 1 piece of paper and 1 pencil, because that's the way we work, right? We share things. We tell you very explicit instructions. For example, because we know some quick failure modes, do not reach across the table and pull the pencil out of the other person's hand. Okay? That's important. Ask politely. May I have the pencil, please? Now we're going to watch to see if you give it up when you're asked for it. Yeah, sure. Yeah, okay. We do this for 20 minutes, and then we did it, and no broken bottle. That's good. Then we switch the pairs. 20 minutes. Switch the pairs one more time. Send you all home. So what are we doing? We're simulating the work environment. We're showing you what is it like to work here. 3 20-minute exercises, and then you all go home. Boy, you're impatient, aren't you, Alicia? Okay, so what we do is we gather so if there were 50 of you, there'd be 25 of us who watched the 50 of you, because every pair has a Menlonian who's watching your interactions and taking notes about what they see. And then afterwards, the 25 people get together. She's got questions. Yeah. And the 25 people get together and they talk about what they saw. And if they say, well, who saw Alicia? If everybody goes like this, the 3 people who saw you, enthusiastic thumbs up, we don't even talk about you, automatic second interview. So the only question we're asking is, did we see enough evidence of kindergarten skills to bring you back for a second interview? If everybody goes like this, we send you a very nice email. Inviting you to try again sometime in the future. But a lot of times what happens is people kind of, she started out good, Monday person, or, and then, dogs, and sick the dogs on them now, so, so you end up with a little bit of a mix, right? And then we talk as a team. What did you see? Now, what's fascinating about this stage of the interview is it's a discussion of our core values with each other as a team. We're talking about what's important to us. What's interesting is to listen to the team members who are participating going, oh, I do that, don't I? I sicked the dog on 3 of you last week. So it's a very important conversation, but the only decision is who gets invited back into a second interview. There's usually about a 50% drop-off after the first night. So 50 would go down to 25. We'd invite the 25 of you in for a second interview, one at a time. You come in by yourself, you pair 4 hours in the morning with one Menlonian, 4 hours in the afternoon with another, do real work, and we pay you for that day. It's a one-day contract, and you do real work. So one of the other parts I hated about the hiring process was onboarding new people, right? What would usually happen is in my old life, I would be in my nice office, you know, and I'd get a phone call from the receptionist, and they'd say, hey, Rich, Alicia's here for her first day on the job. And I'd be like, Alicia, today? Oh my gosh, I can't, what happened? Oh, and then I rush up to I'm like, Alicia, we're so glad you're here. Oh, it's so delightful to see you. Hey, listen, I don't know what happened. A little bit of paperwork follow-up, but we don't have a computer for you, a desk, a chair, a table. But we are so glad you're here, right? Yeah, but listen, you know, we're just going to set you up in the lunchroom. I mean, they got a great cafeteria here. You can eat all day long. You know, there's sort of a SIPGate 15 thing going on here, but but, you know, and we'll give you a few, you know, I wrote a book, Alicia. It's a really good book. You could read this for the first few weeks. I used to say my job as a hiring manager was to try and get you productive before I demoralized you. And I usually lost that race. Now, 2 minutes in the door, you're paired with another person, keyboard goes over underneath your hands, let's get started. And you're like, well, I don't know what to do. And the person next to you says, that's okay. I'll tell you what to do. Double click on that icon. You're like, oh, I can do that, right? And then you just proceed forward from there. And usually, and if that works, if you get 2 thumbs up at the end of that one day, then we invite you in for a 3-week trial, and you do 3 40-hour work weeks with 3 different people working on real client projects, and again, we pay you for that. Usually by that point, we've narrowed it down, and what we're really doing is we're not only evaluating you, we're giving you a chance to evaluate us. You get to see what the work is like. A lot of people look at Menlo and are like, oh, this would be amazing. Maybe not everybody, but that's okay. We want that discernment. We want people to self-select out. Why not? We don't want it to feel heavy that you, well, this just isn't for me. We understand. We're not trying to be all things to all people. And so that's the essence of our interview process.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I used to have one question. Now I think I have 2.
Excellent.
One is related to firing. And the other one is, you mentioned that some people might get the idea, okay, we're just going to get a plastic Viking helmet and then we'll fix everything. Right. I was wondering that after getting your book out, if there was anything that you would now do differently, something about your message that wasn't clear enough.
You know, I think what I told you at the beginning is a message I'm telling the world now, and that is, we're not perfect. I mean, a lot of people are like, oh my gosh, they're amazing, and I think we are. I mean, I'm really delighted. This is the place I want to go to work every day. But don't be confused. We're not perfect. We still got things to work on. Okay. Number 2, don't copy us. There's no value in the copying. I mean, you could do a plastic Viking helmet, that's fine. But understand, that was just, there's nothing magical about any of those artifacts, right? I mean, I look at SIPGate here. One of the things that amazes me about them is they have Cornelius who draws the pictures by hand of all the people who work here. Awesome idea. I love that. I mean, it's so personal, it's so meaningful, right? But, you know, if I went home and said, guys, I figured out what's going to fix our culture. We need Cornelius. You know, that might be a little problem for SIPGate and for Cornelius and his wife that he's leaving behind. But, you know, so we're very careful to say, look, this is your journey, just look at us as an example. And that's a message I'm trying to deliver now so that people don't read the book and say, oh, let's do it exactly like Menlo. I don't think there's any value in that. You have to make it your own. You have to believe. I mean, I think the thing that keeps Menlo going is this shared belief system in everything we do. And supported by storytelling. I mean, I have a lot of stories tonight that I'm telling you. They make you laugh. They make you cry. They make you wonder, this is a crazy business. These stories are very, very important to our culture. I think stories are what propel human cultures forward. They've done that for thousands of years. You know, campfire songs and totem poles and talking sticks and all that sort of thing. I think those are all really important things. So I always encourage people to look at the principles and the values behind what we do and our beliefs, but ultimately it has to be yours and yours alone.
And regarding, thank you for that. And regarding the firing, what do you use? Babies, dogs?
Haven't thought about the dogs yet. Sniff them. So we are kind of a strange, we kind of do a lot of things opposite of what the world tells you should do. We hire very quickly and fire very slowly. A lot of people say you should do exactly the opposite. We just don't. And we just found it works for us. But when somebody needs to move on, it becomes usually, we're not talking about somebody who does something egregious or illegal or anything like that, but the people who just aren't fitting the culture anymore, the first thing we want to do is treat them as human beings. Treat them with dignity and respect in the conversation and make sure that we're listening to them. Usually when this happens for us, it's simply because of a cultural misfit. And it can happen after years. Sometimes people just want to be a different person at a certain point, and that's okay. So we talk to them about it. And, you know, and what's interesting is because we're such a close-knit team, the team makes a decision. It's not James or I. You know, I remember one time in the early days, a guy named Jeff was still on his interview process. He hadn't even gotten through that. And I could just see this guy wasn't going to work out. I could just tell. I mean, when you're in a room together, you can just tell. So eventually I went to the team and I said, guys, I think we should let Jeff go. And they're like, yeah, you're right. But wait, let us work with him. We hired him. We made the hiring decision because our team makes the hiring decisions and our team makes the firing decisions. They said, let us work with him. We think we can rescue him. Because they felt personal responsibility for Jeff coming in the door. They're the ones who, bring him in. We believe in this guy. And what was interesting was I took Jeff aside at that point and I said, hey, Jeff, I just want to let you know we had a discussion today and I was going to let you go. You want to get somebody's attention? Say that to him. And he's looking at me with these wide eyes, and I said, but the team intervened. The team said no. The team said they want to work with you. And he says, wow, that's really cool. I love that about you guys. He says, but just so you know, it wasn't working for me either. I actually have another job offer. I'm going to be leaving soon. But at least we had the conversation. He knew it wasn't working for him. I knew it wasn't working for him. The team was willing to invest. And I think that was pretty neat on their part, because I could have taken them off the hook. I could have just said, hey, I'm going to let Jeff go, but the team intervened. So as we've gone more and more into our practices, the team is making those decisions. And it's not easy. It's never easy, and it shouldn't be easy, ever. We should never treat human beings in a way that we're separating their job from themselves and take that lightly, ever.
Hi. Thank you for telling us stories. I like stories. You mentioned hierarchy and that you don't want to have hierarchy at Menlo, or at least as possible.
We forgot to put hierarchy in place.
Could you tell us?
Like we didn't go to class one day, and they were like the day they talked about hierarchy, we just forgot to go to that class, and we never implemented it.
So I would assume you got some sort of hierarchy. Could you tell us a bit about that? So it's just you and a bunch of others, and
yeah,
just
so
talking, or
yeah, we just sit around and talk to one another. No, what we have is structure, simple, repeatable, measurable, visible structure that I talked about in those beginning slides. The team understands, and it's underlaid by a shared belief system. Now, let me be very clear. What we don't have is bosses. What we do have are leaders. There's a big difference. Bosses believe that hierarchical authority is how you can make decisions. Leaders understand in order to get something done, they have to influence others. That's harder. I mean, if I'm the boss, I just tell you what to do. Well, that's pretty easy, except if it doesn't stick or people say they're doing it when they're really not, because that's what usually happens in a hierarchical boss-based system, right? Everybody's like, yeah, boss, done. Well, it's done, but it's not finished, you know. I mean, there's an importance to us to build up each team member and give them the best possible chance for each of them to learn how to lead. I can tell you it's not easy. It'd be easier to build a hierarchy. We've just chosen not to do it.
So the leaders are entitled or just evolve to be leaders?
Can be anywhere on the team. Anybody can be a leader of a particular thing, and it's really just, are you influencing others? It's not even like you raise your hand and say, I'm going to lead this. You can just tell who the leaders are because they're leading. I mean, it's just interesting to watch. It's an interesting development because it can kind of come from anywhere. Sometimes it's an enthusiasm, it's an optimism, it's a confidence, but you have to bring others along with you. And sometimes people think they're leading just because they're talking louder or talking more. Some of the best leaders are the quiet ones. Ted's like that for us.
Thank you.
You bet. I don't know where the mic is, so I will let the mic runners decide who gets the questions. Sorry. That way I don't.
Hello, good evening. Did you ever reject any of your clients? Or in the process or at the beginning of a project because you see it's not our culture and we cannot work with them?
Yeah, you know, I can remember one explicitly that I called up. They called us up and they were, oh, we want to use Menlo, and I started listening to the project they wanted to do. And it was funny because I wasn't honest with them right away. I said, you know, let me check with the team and see how they feel about this. And he called me back. He says, so have you checked with the team? Yeah, I've checked with the team. You know, and then I realized, I finally, you know, told him, I said, look, it's not the team I'm worried about, it's me. I don't like the project. I'm sorry, it's a, you know, I wasn't trying to malign him or anything like that, but it just didn't feel right for our company. It's the only time I remember being that explicit. What we understand is that we've chosen such a different way to work with our customers that we almost have to, what I tell my team now, even about the book and the talks I give and the customers who are showing up now who have read the book before they show up, is that we have an opportunity now to do something pretty special. We have an opportunity to create better customers. Not find better customers, but to actually teach them that in order for this system to work, they have to participate. See, that planning game process and that show and tell process are crucial. Now, I will tell you, people who come in will see us, they'll tour around, they'll see everything, they'll spend a couple hours or a couple of days with us, and they say, Rich, where do you find people, companies, who are willing to spend 2 hours a week guiding their mission-critical multi-million-dollar project? Where do you find those people? And I'm glad some of you are laughing because the irony there is palpable, right? Like, seriously, you won't spend 2 hours a week with us guiding your project? And then the anti-customers, the ones we most worry about, the ones we think just won't work, are the ones when we ask them at the beginning, tell us what success looks like. Let's say we achieve, in your wildest imagination, we get to where you're heading and it's successful. Tell us what that looks like. The scariest clients are the ones who look at us seriously and they say, oh, I get to keep my job at the end of this project. We're like, seriously? And their boss is sitting right there. And the boss is like, uh-huh. Like, this company's in trouble already and nothing we can do can probably help them. And those are the ones we'll start to slow walk the process. We'll see if we can bring them along. And I think some of our customers get a little frustrated with us because we're slowing the process down, because what we're trying to do is educate them about what the possibilities are of working with us. Because this is a very different kind of machine that you need to learn how to steer and guide. And if you don't do that, you're just going to get the same results you would get from anywhere.
Can I ask another small question about that? Did you ever find out that you were talking to the wrong person at this company of yours or the other company?
Yes. Oh, yeah. So, there's no question that just like the hierarchical question, any of us can get confused when the CIO comes in the room and the CTO or the CEO even, and we think, oh my gosh, we're speaking to power here. But then you find that, you know, Alicia's in the mix somewhere, and she's the one who really wields the power because she's got the dog on the leash. And so, you know, I think it's one of the advantages of having high-tech anthropologists in the mix, because they're so used to like going in with beginner's mind, and they see people that they start to sense what the power structure is within the company, where the decision's really being made, who influences the organization. Because let's face it, hierarchy or not, it is the leaders that move the organization forward. And in any company, those leaders can come from anywhere.
I'm here.
Oh, let's see. Okay, we got one over here, then we'll come to you next.
Sorry. How do you organize the salaries?
Ah, yes, the salaries. Excellent question. So we have 15 levels at Menlo, from associate 1 to senior principal 3. So we have associates, consultants, senior consultants, principal consultants, senior principal, 3 levels at each one. And the pay grade at the same level is exactly the same for everybody. So if you're a consultant 3 and I'm a consultant 3, we are making exactly the same amount of money, regardless of how many years you've worked there, or how many years I've worked there, what degree you got. I might not even have a degree, but if we're both consultant 3s, we're making exactly the same amount of money. The only way you move up in pay at Menlo is to move up from one level to another, and the only way you move up from one level to another is if your peers agree that's the right thing to do. So it's all peer-based evaluation.
But isn't it a kind of hierarchy?
Sure. Well, it's a reward for leadership is really what it boils down to. Because the way you move up at Menlo is to first, at the associate level, we call it being adopted by the team. So your job, almost like a little baby coming into the room, you know, is love me. And at consultant level, we want our customers to start to fall in love with you. And then the move from consultant to senior is our recognition as a team that for some reason, when you're part of a group, the whole group performs better. Not because of your personal output, not because of your personal productivity, but because of the influence you have in the team. And so, and then moving up from there to principal, it's that you are able to cultivate those kind of leaders in the team, that you're able to actually help us build leaders along the way. So that's how we look at things in the company. And sure, I mean, is there a difference, you know, of pay grade, you know, and people might look with others and say, oh my gosh, that's a principal 1, I should respect them. Heck, I don't even get that kind of respect at Menlo. I mean, I will tell you, people will pull me aside. You know, Tracy pulled me aside on the sidewalk after lunch not too long ago, and she said, we need to talk. And I'm like, oh, what did I do now? Right? And so I think, you know, look, I mean, we're just regular human beings. Do I get an undue amount of respect, maybe even undeserved respect from people on the team because my title is CEO? Of course I do. I'm not confused about that. I mean, there are times, what is your name? Laura. Laura? Laura? Nora. Nora, thank you. You know, if I say, hey, Nora, can we talk for a minute? I know just about everybody on the team is like, oh, what did I do wrong? Am I fired? You know, it's like, really? Have I ever done that? Well, no, but you're the CEO. I mean, that's, you know, you can do that. And it's true, I could. I mean, of course I can. I'm one of the owners of the company. At the C-level title, I could fire anybody on the spot if I wanted to. But the tear that would represent in our social fabric, I would pay for years to come. So I don't do it. And that's, you know, a lot of what happens at Menlo is how do we support the social fabric? Yep, I had one over here, yeah.
Yeah, my question was about salary as well. If it was peer-based, now I understand yes. So my question would be, why do you need that level? Is to express expectations, or what?
Yeah,
why do you need
you know,
that?
I mean, there's some simple formulas here where, you know, as you progress in our system, as you become more valuable to us and to our clients, there's a reward in that for you. So instead of paying everybody exactly the same, which would make it, quite frankly, really hard to hold on to people who've been with us the longest, or, you know, kind of top, you know, have advanced into leadership, and the inability to hire new people because we can't afford them, it just doesn't make sense. So, you know, that's, I mean, I think there's just a simple economics to it.
But couldn't you do the same without the the status-related level?
Maybe. We just, it's a good question. You know, it's funny, when those kind of questions come up, I just go to the team and say, what do you guys think? Because quite frankly, they've taken over that whole system. They're the ones that are deciding on, you know, what each level should mean, what criteria do we use as a group to decide who moves up from one level to another, what process do we use, who actually moves up in the system. It's all driven by the team now.
So my question was not why do you need salary levels, but why do you need the levels at all? So the status.
Yeah, I understand. No, I heard your question. Yeah, we probably have them because we had them at the beginning, and we've never questioned it since then. And the team seems to be comfortable with it. If the team was bristling against it, or they said, yeah, this doesn't make sense anymore, we're Menlo, we shouldn't have these. Now, that said, you seldom will hear anybody talking to each other about their levels, like, oh, I'm a consultant 3, what are you? I mean, that doesn't happen. And the titles they actually use in the company, like what's on their business card, they make up. Ted is a programmer, and his title, at least recently, I don't know if it's still, is, oh wait, I'm going in the wrong direction, I think. Yeah. So Ted calls himself on his business card Green Dot Hunter. So we have fun with it. I mean, my business card, by the way, I have all those materials up here if you want to grab any afterwards. Remember, I want to give all those away because I don't want to carry them back with me. But my title on the card is a chief storyteller. And at first it was playful, but then I realized how important it was to our culture. So yeah, we're very playful with overall titles. The other one just is for pay grade. That's all.
Thank you.
You bet. Hey. By the way, I can outlast you. Because you know what? It's only 3:30 in the afternoon for me.
I understood that you change the pairs every 5 days.
Yes.
How exactly is this? Is it randomized?
Oh no, it's not. It's the most thoughtful process we go to. The process is led by our project managers, so they're the ones who put together the charts. But everybody in the team participates in the process of who is going to pair with whom. And I don't mean like everybody gets together every week and decides. But if you have an interest in how are the decisions being made around who should pair with whom and who should be in which projects, you just get invited right into the conversation. And quite frankly, we found over time that we want to invite everybody into that conversation because it is not easy to decide. And it is the most thoughtful process we go through, and it is the greatest opportunity to grow our team by an inch this week. Grow the team by an inch every week. Why? Because we can start to look at the 2 people we're going to put together and see who has one strength and who has another strength, right? Who, you know, what we find is, you know, people, oh, so you pair your senior people with your new people. Yes, we do. And then they assume, oh, so the seniors, they're just to mentor the junior people. Well, yeah, I don't know. When they come out of college with fresh new skills and updated, sometimes the mentoring is going in the other direction, but there's no way to trade away the experience of a senior person on the team. But that blend is so powerful. You know, for instance, Ted is a great teacher on automated unit testing. And so if you join the team and you've never done it before, that's okay. We pair you with Ted. He's a real gentle teacher. Every time he knows, every time you go to write an automated unit test, he puts the keyboard over in front of you. So you get that direct, it's not, here, watch me do this. No, your hands are on the keyboard, directly experiencing it. Ted knows to do that. Now, Ted's not the only one who does it. And if you're faltering, if you're confused about when we should do this, then we'll pair you with Keely. Keely's, you know, Keely has a dog. Keely's very rules focused. I mean, if you go 1 inch outside line, she's like, you can't do that way, you know. And Keely knows this about herself. I mean, I don't think she would be too upset with me by describing that. She's very rules focused. So we know if you're drifting, put you with Keely.
Thank you.
You bet.
Hi, good evening. We are trying very hard here at Zipgate. We many of us share some visions about how we should work, and then we do something like, okay, we're 6 developers in our team, and now we're doing 100% pairing, and then we have days where it works out very well, and then there happens something called reality. Someone gets sick, or an odd number of developers wants to go on vacation, or something like that. How do you handle those situations?
Yeah, obviously, with a human team, the people don't show up every day for a whole bunch of reasons, right? It could be they're not sick, it could be their child is sick and they have to take them to the doctor and that sort of thing. Because we're switching the pairs every 5 days, we are very used to onboarding new people, even experienced people on the team. So if you call in sick, we have an internal project, we call it the Bullpen Project, and we will just cannibalize that project to fill in the pieces. So we'll pull somebody off the bullpen and put them right into the team. And because they're used to that rotation all the time, it doesn't feel uncomfortable. And the team might even self-heal around that, where they're like, okay, you know, you're not here today, and we could put the person coming in off the bullpen with the person you were supposed to be paired with, but that doesn't feel quite right. So they'll just dynamically adjust. The team's fully in charge of those decisions as to how they would adjust to that. And if 2 of you call in sick, we'll probably just get less done that day because that whole pair's gone. But if it's 2 people from 2 different pairs, then the 2 pair partners that are left behind will just pair together. And so we only, interestingly, across the whole company, we only have to solve the odd man out problem once per day, right? Because we can move people around. And because we're used to doing that, and because our team is very sort of multi-skilled, we don't have the tower of knowledge issue of you're the Oracle 9.1.1.3 Service Pack 3 expert, you know. And so people can move around in any project or technology very easily. And they do. Sure.
One question: how is it possible that your clients present the software solution to your team? I haven't catch that idea.
You know what? I could barely hear you. I'm sorry.
Okay, so my question is, what I've understood is that your customer will present the done or the ready software to the team after.
Oh yes, right. Yeah.
Days. How does that work? Can you please explain?
Like how could they know what to present? Yeah, yeah. No, I get it. Thank you. So this picture right here, this is our customer. This is a great customer. He says, oh yeah, you can take pictures of me whenever you want. So, you know, he's in this picture, he's in this picture, you know, so and these are other customers and that sort of thing. But understand, he's reading these things every week. If he's confused about what's going on, sorry, he's reading them. If he's confused, he talks to our team about it. Hey, what does this mean? What's going to happen if I do this card? What's actually going to come out? Now, the cards themselves have to be written in terms the customer understands. Okay, this is really important. So let's give you an example, a bad example and a good example. Because we write bad cards sometimes, we have to, that's delete, okay? Sorry, didn't think it would go that far. Let me just give you an example, bad card, good card, okay? So we were working on the organ transplant information system for the University of Michigan healthcare system. You can imagine that's a pretty important project. And so one of our programmers wrote a card, and it said, reduce the number of calls to the SQL database by 50% when bringing up the opening screen. Now, I just happened to look at that card one day. Bob had written it, and I looked at it, and I thought, huh. I said, Bob, why would the customer schedule this card? The customer's not a programmer. Customer doesn't even understand what SQL means, right? And you're saying reduce the calls to the database by 50%. I guess that's good, I think. Is that good? I mean, don't you need all those calls, right? You know, I mean, and what's a call anyways, right? You know, why are people calling each other about the database, right? And so I said to Bob, I said, why would the customer schedule this card? And he goes, oh, that's really important. I said, why? He said, well, I was running the application the other day, and the surgeons that are going into a transplant surgery bring up this screen just before they go into surgery. It takes 45 seconds to come up. Patient's life is at stake. I don't think the doctor wants to wait that long. I said, great. How long do you think the doctor wants to wait? He says, I think less than 3 seconds. I said, perfect. You just rewrote the card. Bring up opening screen and application in less than 3 seconds. Currently takes 45. Guarantee the customer will schedule that card, Bob. Now, customer goes to run the application, and our team says, we got this card done. The customer goes, oh, I remember this card. Opening screen should come up in less than 3 seconds. And he goes, click. Because he knows what the opening screen was. He's been using the software as it's developed. The fact that he's checking in with us every 5 days means the customer's keeping right up with us on this. Does that make sense? A lot of what we do, remember I said simple, repeatable, measurable, visible structure based on human relationships. That drives everything we do at Menlo.
Okay, thank you very much.
You bet.
All right. I think one more question would be okay, and then we'll finish. Is that okay?
And we could go out in the courtyard and talk all night if you want. Is there going to be beer afterwards?
Plenty of it.
Okay, there we go. So we can talk all night.
So judging from our experiences, more than plenty. So
is there still dessert?
I don't know. Kitchen, is there still dessert?
Oh, okay. All right, so it's all beer, right. Just beer.
All
okay,
right,
perfect.
Well, thank you, Rich.
Yeah, okay. So I got one more thing to read for myself, so I'm going to just take the last question. Because, again, remember, there are maybe 3 goals tonight for me. Get 5,000 Twitter followers tonight. Have you download, remember this sequence, you got to beat, I have to beat, this is James, by the way, this is my co-founder right here. He's a much better public speaker than I am, and so he always gets more downloads than I do. And so I want to prove to him I can do it too. I think he asks for them now. That's why I think he's winning the competition. So just go there and download something. Just do anything. Just any one of the 3 choices. Just, you know, I'll look amazing. Okay. And then all my materials have to go too. Remember that. Okay. Here's my encouragement to you. Okay. Sort of like your question. Where do we go from here? What you're here for tonight is to think about change. Right? Something isn't working. But know this about change, that easy change is neither lasting nor meaningful, so don't pursue it. If you choose joy, know that you are at the first steps of an arduous journey, perhaps the equivalent of climbing Mount Everest. Changing human behavior is one of the most difficult efforts you will ever undertake, and quite possibly the most rewarding. There will be storms, setbacks, and disappointments. You will need others to join you, to help you when you falter or slip. This journey to joy at work is personal. It has to be. You want a job or an organization that brings you joy. You want to enjoy that good kind of tired at the end of each day, knowing that you made your life just a little bit better today. Along the way, you transform yourself into the person you've always dreamed you could be. You get in touch with what makes your heart sing. You draw others to your flame. Those closest to you start to notice a difference in who you've become. You start to see joy, feel joy, and almost touch joy within your entire team. Everyone is now feeling his or her own version of what you are feeling. Together, you begin to speak confidently about your culture, your values, and your mission. There's a unified purpose and a way to deliver it. Now nothing seems impossible. Finally, with this journey, you see change in the world. The customers you touch, the products and services you deliver, the community that interacts with you, the people who help you tell your story, they become a part of the joy too. They want to be you. They want to be with you. They ask you how to achieve the joy that you've achieved. More than anything, I wish you that joy. Thank you very much.